Today, I want to share about the 3 steps to mastering your relationship with money. I invite you to imagine what it would be like if you could identify and understand the reasons behind why you feel the way you do about money. It's like when I was in my corporate job, I made insanely good money and it kept slipping through my fingers and I was living paycheck to paycheck. I thought this was normal until I saw my peers around me, in the same place where I worked, making the same amount of money or more than I did, or less than I did, making big purchases, buying houses, living bigger, and they were happier with their lives. I thought, what's going on here? What are they doing that I'm not? I mean, I saw this show on TV, and it was where this heroine was literally bathing and $1,000 bills. And I thought to myself, I need a hot tub of that going on a regular basis, not just a one-time thing. So, I had to content myself with a trip to the grocery store while they were taking trips to Europe and other exotic fun destinations. Definitely not as exciting or satisfying, but boy, I always had a good full fridge of food, so I never had to complain about that. I realized that I was taking on my parents' limiting beliefs, and they just didn't serve me anymore. I was different. I wasn't that 8-year-old being guided by her parents to become a useful member of society. I was a 3-time world champion martial artist, and I was in control of how I wanted to shape my mindset. Getting released from my corporate job really put things in perspective. And at the same time, I was getting certified in some holistic modalities, as well as training for the world championships to compete. I mean, did I have enough going on? What did I do in my spare time? So talk about having a lot on my plate. But, I was used to pushing through this. Little did I know what was to come. I mean, I remember saying to my boss as he was letting me go, really? You couldn't just have a conversation with me to resolve this and package me out properly? I just shook my head and I said to myself, you guys have deep pockets and I'm going to take some of what you owe me for my decades of work. It just really was not done in an ethical way. And it was made to make me feel shame and guilt and all those things that employers can sometimes use to make you feel bad enough so that they feel good enough. And at the same time, all of this was happening, I was being certified in a holistic modality where the goal was to clear the things that were holding you back. And boy, was I holding stuff back. I mean, I just got released from my job. And lastly, because of all of this, I started having realizations of trauma from my childhood. I mean, childhood is hard enough on us, right? I said the right there. Childhood is hard enough on us. Let's not make it any worse. It got intense and I had to see the humor in it. I could always focus on world peace, like just like the Miss America candidates and third world problems. And mine looked small in comparison. I remember coming home from this and literally feeling like my life exploded. I walked around like a zombie, those ones like in The Walking Dead, right? Um, as I did this for days as I tried to process things. I should have auditioned for that show at that point because I think it would have been a shoe-in, and I could be a TV star to this day. Well, you've probably been there sometime in your life, knowing what it feels. You want to scream and cry at the same time, knowing that you get nowhere, but you hope that someone is listening to come and save you. That feeling, it's just horrible. Your head is heavy. Your head is heavy, and every step feels like your legs are 100 pounds heavier than they are, but you're on your way because it's okay. You just down half a gallon of ice cream. Ben and Jerry's, I like their peanut butter fudge thing situation. It's very good for me. And you're watching the shopping channel, thinking about what you can buy, and you're watching another Hallmark movie. And this is all at 2 a.m. So things are on the up. Now, I needed to get focused and be in alignment with my purpose. What did that mean? Well, I'm an entrepreneur of 40 years and I should have my act together, right? I mean, what do I want to be when I grow up? I realized that working with people to attain the wealth they deserved, that was really what was pushing my buttons. What was the pivotal moment when everything began to turn around for me? I can tell you there was a lot of trial and error. and many sleepless nights. And, no wonder I was tired all the time. It was like when you've forgotten what 8 hours of sleep was like, and it becomes some fantasy that's temporarily out of reach. It's kind of like when I have to listen to my husband snoring all night and we have CPAPs. Yes, that's a thing. I can't even tell you about that pain. So, but being accountable for my actions and not taking action comes down to me and no one else. I'm the one responsible for myself. I was the only one who was putting limiting beliefs on myself, and quite frankly, that was a hard pill to swallow for me. Almost everybody wishes they could be a rock star, even for a moment at some time in their life. And so how could I, a 3-time world champion martial artist, have limiting beliefs? That belonged to other people who hadn't achieved the level that I was at. Boy, was that a lie. I was so good at telling myself that story about how I could make it big someday, and that when I did, I couldn't even recognize it for what it was. Once I was able to fix these issues, my whole life opened up, and I actually became a wealth creating machine. I love saying that, a wealth creating machine. I'll give you a good example. So my husband and I start dating, and we go out on this date. And normally we would train in the dojo. So he'd only ever seen me in my gi, which is what we train in. So when we went out on the date, I dressed up. I was wearing a nice skirt and top, and like he was, wearing nice clothes. And he stood there with his mouth open, staring at me, right? So high fives. Yeah, I did a good impression. So we go out on this date, and we're having conversations. We order food and drinks, and we're just talking. He goes, well, one of the first things out of his mouth, and I realized, already before we started going, he'd been married twice. So I knew there was like stuff there with that. So he's like, well, I don't want to get married again. And I'm just like, I'm thinking in my head, this is our first like date, and you don't want to get married again. I mean, come on, ladies. What would you say to a guy on a first date that says, I don't want to get married?